back to Leaders Recon. Today, we're talking about an exciting topic with Bailey Ann Slaughter, linguists and language pay and a bunch of other things. So, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, we always try to break the ice here at the beginning. Fun, unusual fact about yourself.
So I am on the civilian side, I am the National Guard Language Program Manager, financially and kind of training and readiness-wise.
Okay.
It's just an all one-stop thing. And on the National Guard side, I'm a 35 Papa, SIGINT, voice interceptor, Arabic linguist. So I know both sides really well. I've been doing it on the National Guard side I've been in for 14 years.
Oh, wow.
I've been doing the civilian job for 4 years this month, and I'm just really comfortable with it. I really love the program. Linguist population is a super cool group to work with,
Yeah, so as we're diving into that a little bit, I feel like you're like the perfect guardsman because you work a civilian job and you're a part-time
it is unusual.
linguist, you know?
Right.
So what is a linguist? Like,
So there are two flavors of linguists. We have human intelligence. It's kind of the nearsighted picture for our translators, and then we have the SIGINT, signals intelligence. And that's the far-sighted, close listening. You're either interrogators or the 35 mics, the humaners.
okay.
And then 35 Papa, Intel, they are the ones listening from afar. You never really interact with the people. That's what the 35 mics do. So there are two different types you want to do. You can be the interrogator or just like the sit back and listener and receive signals.
And they all fall under military intelligence.
They do. They're both
Okay.
MI, and those are our two language-dependent MOSs in the National Guard. You must maintain a language to stay DMOSQ.
Okay, so if so for those people that are interested in becoming a linguist of some sort, they're going to be going into the MI field, doing one of those two things, from what I'm understanding, either working with people like interrogation or translation. If you're deployed somewhere, if you're in one of these two MI positions, is that where you will be your translator, or is that a separate field?
Yeah, so they both work in teams. So the human
Okay.
teams would go out and do interviews if they need to go find information. Like, the MI commander has priority intelligence requirements he's trying to get after. They'll go try to get those from the people face to face. And then SIGINTers, the 35 Papas, will go out and camp out and just kind of scan the area and see if they can pick up anything.
And then these are units, you mentioned earlier when we were talking beforehand that every IBCT had an MI company with...
Yes, the Brigade Engineering Battalion, and
Okay.
they'll have a MICO in there, and that's what I used to be in with the 76 in Indiana. And I was part of a profit team lead. It was tactical, it was out in the field all the time.
And about how many linguists usually are in a IBCT like that?
So there'd be about 11, so there are 9 35 Papas, and maybe the same number of mics. Not very many.
Okay.
It's like a squad level, just one team. And then the rest, they're language capable. MOSs do exist, but the billet has to be coded for that. So there are some MI MOSs that may require a language. Some have it in the 300th MI Brigade. They'll be coded. They can be in there too and assess, like the SIGINT analysts, the Novembers, people like those, just reading the reports and writing.
So essentially, everyone in the Army that is considered a linguist is not necessarily just a translator. They are functioning in an MI role of some capacity.
That's right. They are not translators. They have a specific MOS, so they have like a technical job that they do. So SIGINT intelligence, they primarily work with the equipment. They maintain the profit systems. They go out. They send things back to hire. They just kind of they kind of gist things. They kind of see what's relevant, send it back for someone else to translate for reports. And then mics, their main job is interrogation. So interrogation tactics, going out and speaking with people. They might not always be the one translating. They might have a contract translator with them to do the actual translation. But just doing that Army job is the main thing, and they just also have a language.
That's super interesting. So like, if I'm interested then into becoming a linguist and going into one of these MI roles, what does that process look like from cradle to grave?
So if you want to be a linguist, if you want to be a 35 mic or a 35 Papa, I won't say linguist because that's very umbrella, but you would go to DLI first, get your language, and then go to the AIT for your MOS-specific training.
In DLI, where's that located?
So that's in Monterey, California. It's called the Defense Language Institute. And depending on what language you get, it goes Cat 1 through Cat 4. Cat 1 and 2 are 36 weeks, Cat 3 is 48 weeks, and Cat 4 languages are 64 weeks.
And that's based on like the difficulty of the language?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So Cat 1 and 2 would be your Spanish, French, and Indonesian. Cat 3 would be Farsi, Russian, Hebrew, those kinds of languages. And 4 would be all the dialects of Arabic, Korean, Mandarin, and Japanese, those kinds of languages.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So more challenging. So
Yeah.
so DLI, go to the Defense Language Institute. Depending on how difficult your language is,
Mm-hmm.
you spend your time there, and then you go to AIT afterwards, and that's where you learn the MI skills.
That's right. So the 35 Papa School, you actually do some of the class in your target language. So you have to have the language when you go there. I think 35 Mike's getting there. They just do it in English right now. But they want you to use, like, they pick up the language skills for the target language in the schoolhouse, and then go off to your unit and be able to be technically and tactically proficient in your language.
So then for a guardsman, right, I'm assuming you need to find one of those MI companies that it's coded for a language position, right? And then how would, so like let's say I'm a soldier in whatever, your Illinois Guard, right? Indiana Guard. So when you were an Indiana Guardsman, when you first looked into like becoming a linguist, how did that path look for you?
So I was the first one to go in Indiana. So I was kind of a mistake. We found out after I went to school that we only had Farsi billets. So I went to school for Modern Standard Arabic. So I've been in the wrong slot my whole career, which is fine. I still am fully DOMSQ, but it kind of ruins our unit readiness index a little bit. But so if you want to be a specific type of linguist, if you just want to say, I want to be 35 Mike Papa, I don't care what language, you just go to your recruiting office, they'll tell you what they have, and they'll go to school for that. If you want a specific language, you would either come to me or go to your readiness NCO, and we can find other units. Out of 54 states, we have 30 states that have language billets.
Oh, wow. So they're kind of widespread then across.
They are, yeah. So we have the 300th My Brigade, which is the biggest, it's the only linguist brigade in the entire force. And they're across Utah, Washington, California, and Florida. And then all the other states in between have the IBCTs and the little MICOs, and the EMIBs have their own, MI capabilities, obviously. But
and then that MI brigade, I'm assuming there's a lot of billets located within.
There's a lot. Yeah, they have 2 battalions in Utah and then a battalion in Washington, California, and Florida. And those are, I think they're about 175 people per battalion.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. So like 600 some folks.
Exactly. And there are 2,800 billets across the linguist force, and I think about 1,900 are full. Wow.
So going back then to, I know there's units out there, there's slots available, you got to find one of those, and then I go to Defense Language Institute, which I think you described earlier as the best language training program in the world.
So it's hailed as one of the best language schools in the world. It is. It's so when you're there for the number of weeks that whatever your CAT is, it's Monday through Friday, 6 hours a day plus an optional 7th hour. If you're passing, it's optional. And it's with native speakers. They rotate a different teacher every single hour, so you get that flow. Wow. You don't get bored. They're very small classrooms, 5 to 6 people per classroom, 30 people per, rotation.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing.
How was your experience there? Like, what was your day in the life like at DLI?
I had a fantastic experience. I went 10 years ago, but I was single, no kids, so no distractions. And that's kind of the tough thing that gets people to, if you take too many distractions with you, it's a train that leaves the station. Like if you fall behind, it's very tough to keep up. So if you stay on top of it at the very beginning with the sound and script classes, they give you everything you need to know. Like they're made for any sort of like learning style. They'll catch on really quickly. They do personality tests while they're there to make sure they're interacting properly. It's a really neat school. Like I'm so impressed. I'd love to go back for another language.
Can you go back for another language?
I could.
Oh,
but,
really?
I mean, if funds available, that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, in Utah, I know in some other places, they do cross-cultural training. So if they want to do a North African, specialization for a linguist, they'll send them to French and Arabic. Or, Italian. Or if they want to focus on a specific country, they'll do the 2 languages for that country. As long as you're above a 2+2+ in your main language, you can go to school for another language.
So and you brought up a point there on the grading scale. So to become a linguist, isn't there like an aptitude test or something you have to take? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, it's like an entrance exam. It's called the Defense Language Aptitude Battery.
Okay.
And so for the Cat 1 through Cat 4 languages, it goes from 90 to 110 in 5-point increments.
Okay.
And we do have a waiver process for a few points. But so if you want to be a Cat 4 linguist, Arabic, you need to get 110 on the D-Lab. And it's one of those crazy tests where it's like it's a made-up language, and they start feeding you like made-up, sentence structure, and you got to follow it pretty quickly. And It's interesting, but we have a waiver process now where if you have a high enough GT and ST score, you don't have to take it, or it can supplement a lower score so you can get into the course that you want.
Oh, really? Is there a GT minimum requirement score?
It's just like high 1 teens, high 120s, like just reasonably high with,
Okay.
you know, the proper experience. We've gotten a lot of waivers pushed through this year, I think about 30, and we usually send about 50 anyway. So we've gotten a good
Oh, wow.
feedback on our waiver process.
So I take the D lab, right? And that helps get me into DLI. And then after DLI, go to AIT and then back to my unit for whatever
That's right.
ongoing drill process, right? Now, what is your, so in your role as a traditional guardsman on the M-Day side, you know, what does your drill look like? How do you maintain proficiency in your language?
So mine's different. I'm the brigade language program manager for the 54th, so I'm in another admin position. I'm not tactical anymore. But before, during drill weekends, we'd maintain the profit systems, all the technical stuff. And then we have about 4 hours every drill weekend that an instructor, a civilian contract instructor would come in, sit with us and keep us, you know, keep that ball kind of in the air for language because we never use it in between. And every year, the Army Regulation 11-6, the Army Language Regulation, mandates 80 hours of consecutive training every single year for an assigned linguist.
Oh, really? Okay. So it's like almost like a licensing requirement. You got
Exactly. It's called a significant language training event, a SLATE. And for active component, it's 150 hours, but for the National Guard and Reserve, it's 80. But all of our classes are 4 to 5 weeks. It's what you need. You know, 2 weeks is not enough unless you're one-on-one with an instructor if you never use it during the year. So that's what my program does. We provide the training and the funds for these courses, and we try to make it as personalized as you need. Like if you think you need 5 weeks, we'll get you a 5-week course in whatever proficiency we want with whatever, you know, teacher you want. Like that's what we do.
That's
So we make
super
sure-
interesting. So there's a lot of resources available once you're
Absolutely.
into those roles to maintain proficiency.
Exactly. That's what my job is, to resource those roles and make sure they're funded, make sure everybody has all the dictionaries they need, you know, all the computers they need, and all the training. That's what we do. We have a lot of civilian contractors like Berlitz and Alta and Lingua, and then we have it's called the Defense Language and Security Education Office, Delencio. They provide grants to universities to pay for their tuitions, so we can use them just on pay and order allowances. So like University of Utah, CSU Long Beach, Concordia, there's a school in Minnesota and Montana, they all provide the
really?
resources to us.
So then, you know, kind of shifting gears a little bit, you know, I guess we're following the life cycle of someone becoming a linguist. You know, so you're at your unit. Can you give us some examples from, you know, I'm sure you've seen a lot of soldiers come out of the training and then get deployed or utilized. What's a unique or interesting example you've seen for soldiers coming out of that program and then getting utilized from a guard perspective?
So I'll use the DARI thing that we have going on right now, the Operation Allies Welcome, that's going on right now. So we get call-outs all the time from FORSCOM and from all the ASCCs, and they always want these low-density linguists. And so it's like, hey, do you have any DARI linguists? Like, we sure do. We sent a big old announcement out to all 54, and we had 12 respond and go immediately within a week to their assigned stations. And they're working it right now. They're allowed to have as long of a tour as they want. They could name the length.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's great. We get asked all the time for stuff. We support overseas deployment trainings. So Pacific Pathway is always asking for, you know, Japanese linguists.
Oh, yeah, I didn't. So then, so if I have a soldier who, you know, you have a soldier who already speaks a language then, like, and they want to go into one of these linguist spots for the low density MOSs that maybe aren't taught at like the Defense Language Institute, is that possible?
Absolutely. So on our strategic language list, if you're not MI, there's only 8 languages you can get paid for. But while you're on orders as a translator for any sort of event, you can get paid language pay while you're on orders for that mission.
Okay. So you mentioned there a little bit about being able to get paid speaking another language without being a linguist. Is that a separate program, or can you explain that a little bit?
That's right. So if you're a linguist, in any case, there is a thing called there's a monthly bonus. It's called the Foreign Language Proficiency Bonus. And it's a monthly pay depending on how well you do on the Defense Language Proficiency Test, which I'll talk about in a minute.
Okay.
So based on your score, you can get, if you're on the A list for the strategic language list, it's 8 languages like Arabic, Levantine, Yemeni, Baluchi, Farsi, Dari, Urdu, and then a couple other ones. Anyone in the force, if they take a DLPT and get a 2-2 or above on that test, they can get paid monthly for a full year.
Okay.
Depending on their score. And then if you're a linguist, whatever your assigned language is, you'd get paid no matter what the strategic language list says.
So then,
So if you could be a Spanish linguist in the Guard, which is not needed, on the list, but as long as you are a 35 micropapa Spanish linguist, you would get paid that A rate.
well, that's what I was kind of asking. So like, let's say I speak, Spanish fluently, but that's not a critical density language.
No.
Can I still transition into one of those linguist roles without going to DLI because I'm a proficient speaker?
You would have to find a Spanish billet.
Okay.
Which is very difficult because they're mostly full. But you can take a DLPT. You wouldn't get paid for it. But if opportunities arise where we need Spanish linguists, you could volunteer for those because we have your score on file.
So then, let's say I had a low density MOS language though. I don't know, French or something. And I wanted to, and I have a French billet that's open. I can go into that billet or apply to get into that billet without having to go through the Defense Language Institute?
Oh, that's right. You don't have to go to DLI. That's just to get the language. If you already know the language, all you'd have to do is go to AIT.
Okay. Just to clarify, if I want a linguist role, regardless of whether I speak a language or not, I'm still going into that military intelligence field.
Right. If you want to fill a language-dependent billet in the military, you'd have to go through MI and go through the process, get your clearance, all that good stuff. Go to AIT, which requires the clearance, and then you go back to your unit. If you just want to be an 11 Bravo that speaks one of the A-list languages like Yemeni, you can go take the DLPT, and there's no further obligation from you to be anything MI. You would just, if we needed a requirement, if we had a call out for National Guardsmen, like, hey, we need Yemeni linguists, you'd be more than welcome to apply if it didn't need clearance.
So we probably have a lot of guardsmen in that boat that either have some language training or are somewhat proficient. What is you mentioned the grading scale. Can you walk us through like what the scales on the grading are and what are the minimum requirements if I want to get paid for?
Yeah, so it goes 0, no proficiency, to 4, like college level. You went to master's school for that language kind of thing, and then everything in between. It goes 0, 0 plus, 1 plus, 2, 2 plus. And so 2-2 is the standard, or that's the minimum standard for the military. The NSA standard's 3-3. So that's technically our standard. But to get paid, 2-2, DOMSQ'd. And then Special Forces and SFAB, Security Force Assistance Brigade linguists, only have to do the 1+1+ level. They have the memo, and that's mostly speaking for them. But there are 3 modalities. There's reading, listening, and speaking.
Okay.
And so for all the main languages, all the ones that are used a lot and the ones they teach at DLI, the DLPT will be reading and listening.
Okay.
And then so Arabic dialects is just the MSA, Modern Standard Arabic reading, plus whatever dialect of listening it'll be. And they'll just keep adding it on. And then for the low density languages, it'll just be an oral proficiency interview. And then if there's no DLPT for it, because I think there's 66 DLPTs, and so any other language outside of that would just be a speaking interview. Your 2 modalities would be speaking and listening.
Okay.
And then, so you have to have 2 modalities to get foreign language pay, the bonus pay.
And so for those of us that are less familiar with, what a 2-2 means, what is that? Like, is that elementary? Is that like grade school level? What kind of?
So the way I explain it is like, so 0 is no proficiency. 1 is like phrase book, like you can just read off a page and you don't really know what it means or what the sentence structure is. 2-2, you can put things together. It's like sentences, paragraphs, stories, in those kinds of levels. It's like sentences to paragraphs for a 2-2, and then like understanding feelings, getting there for the 3-3s, and then 4-4 is just like, the abstract language, like.
And does that determine?
And,
if I score higher than a 2-2, does it change the pay that you're getting?
It does. It goes in each, well, almost each increment.
Okay.
So it'd be like 2-2, and then 2+2+, and then 3-3, and then like if you get a 3-3-3, which is all 3 modalities, it's equal to a 4-4. And the 4-4 is the highest. I've only seen a few. It's an incredible achievement to get a 4-4.
So you said 2-2s, you're working your way around, but 4-4 is like.
That's the minimum standard for the military, and it gets you by. Like I can feel pretty good with a 2-2. I can get around, and I can get main ideas across, but I wouldn't want to be my commander's sole interpreter, like.
Mm-hmm. So then what does that pay look like? Is there a set dollar figure per month?
It is. I think it's I I think it's like 300. It goes from 100 to 500,
Okay.
and then increments of 50.
Depending on which
score.
language you speak, or
No,
just the
that's
score?
just the score.
Okay.
They're all paid the same, no matter what language. It's just based off that DLPT score.
And there's paid for any language, or is it just the critical need languages?
So if you're a linguist, any language that's your main language. It's called a CLANG, a control language.
Okay.
Any linguist with a control language gets paid the top rate for that language. So whatever your score is, it's that. And then for those 8 languages, anyone in the force can get it's between A and B.
And can you refresh us on what those 8 languages were?
Yeah, it's Arabic, Levantine, Yemeni, Baluchi, Farsi, Dari, and Urdu, and there are a couple others.
Okay.
They're not off the top of my head. You can Google. So if you do Army HRC language on Google,
Okay.
it pulls you up to the HRC page, and it has the entire list on there. And it's supposed to change every year, but I think this one's from 2019, the most recent one.
Okay. And then that's something that you'd have to refresh the test on then every year?
Yes, so to maintain your qualifications as a linguist, as a micro papa, you'd have to take the test every single year. The test is good for 365 days.
And then if you're just a random soldier trying to
Same
maintain
thing.
your language base, same thing?
Same thing. Yeah, it'll count as expired after that last day.
Hmm.
And you can take it up to 6 months in advance. So people usually overlap by a month or 2 to make sure.
So that you maintain proficiency.
Exactly.
Just
You don't get flagged.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the less obvious benefits for soldiers to become qualified in one of these languages?
So obviously knowing a foreign language is an amazing achievement, and especially with the languages that we teach, it's like the ones that our government contractors are focused on. You know, it's like Russia, China, all the big countries that we're focused on. You'll be a proficient linguist coming out of the gate with this thing, and we have the resources to teach you and keep you current. We can enhance your language, we can sustain it, we can do amazing things with it. So if you're a guardsman, you can use our money, go to school, get your language, and they also give an associates too, DLI, for your language.
Oh, really?
I should have mentioned that earlier, but an Associates of Arts from the Defense Language Institute, which is the only degree given by Congress.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and you can have that on your resume, and then, I mean, we'll maintain your language, and you can find a great job with government contracting.
Have you done any government contracts yourself? Or?
I have not. I've just been doing the language program here, but I've been pushing those resources out. We get announcements all the time, and I push them all the way to the state level. It's a really sought after skill.
Yeah, I'm assuming, especially with the linguist having like a security clearance,
the clearance,
as well
the
as
linguist, exactly, and then we can maintain it too. So there's never fear of going sub-proficient. As long as you're in the Guard, we'll keep it going for you, and then find you those opportunities to find specialty languages if you're high enough, and there's the funds there. We can cross-train you in other languages.
Now, and that's just for linguists. Let's to clarify. Like let's say I scored a 2.2 in Dari or something, and I maintain that language, but I'm an infantryman or I'm an MP or whatever. Is there any resources for me to try to maintain that language that are
you
provided
could ask
by
your
the military?
G3, but the language program is a G2 program, so it's just for our assigned 35 series. And that was 09 Limas, but we don't have those anymore.
Because at one time, didn't the Army provide some one of those online language training programs for free, like Rosetta Stone or something? Is that still available?
So it's not, but we still have a couple websites. The Joint Language University.
Okay.
And then there's the DLI FLC website, Defense Language Institute Foreign Language Center .edu. They have a boatload of language training, like initial acquisition things on there. My program.
That you can just.
Yeah, you can just jump on there and
Okay.
see. Yep, they have all kinds of cool stuff. They have an accent library for certain languages too, so you can hear how they sound. And you can practice your own on the website. So you don't have to have a login or anything. You can just jump in there.
Oh, wow.
And just to be clear too, with my program, I support existing linguists in the Guard, just sustainment and enhancement training. Initial acquisition is the G3 program.
Yeah, a little bit different.
It is a little bit different.
Do you have any advice, though, for soldiers who, whether they're wanting to become a linguist or are looking for some of those resources? Do you have some advice from your perspective or from the students that you've helped on the, the maintenance side for, first steps or things that they should do?
Yeah, absolutely. I would suggest if you know someone that's been a linguist, get with them and ask them their experience. Going to DLI, I can't stress enough, like take as few distractions as you can with you, because it is a train that leaves the station. And unfortunately for the National Guard, unlike the active component, if you do poorly in a course, they roll back, we get sent home. So we don't get that second chance that they do because the funding is different. So
Okay.
you really have to focus, you really have to take it seriously. And then after that, the AIT is just natural, it's easy.
That piece of it
But
is easy.
the school is no joke. That's what I can say too. Take it seriously, start off early. I'd say practice before you get there, just a basic sound and script stuff, handwriting if it's a foreign language.
And I know you just mentioned some resources that are available for those interested in learning languages, but is there any other resources that you would recommend to soldiers, whether it's on the maintenance side or initial acquisition?
For the maintenance side, I can get any of our linguists free material from NSA. They gave us that option during our G2 workshop a few weeks ago. I would just come through me. I can get a whole stack of books for them just for free. Just send it right to them. For initial acquisition, people brag about Duolingo, those kinds of little websites. Like just to get you familiar with a foreign script. If it's like Spanish or French, it's a little different, but the alphabet is critical to learn. Just right off the bat.
Arabic, reading the backwards, I guess
Yeah.
that's a little challenging, right?
I guess that's why I like Arabic so much, because I'm left-handed.
Well, it works out
It
then.
doesn't get the smudge on my hands.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming today and sharing some of your experience here and some of these unique resources for guardsmen.
No, thank you for having me. The language program is great. Linguist population is awesome. It's a great group to be with if you want to join.
If you would like more information on any of the topics discussed today, please visit our social media pages in the links below. Tune in to Leaders Recon over the next few weeks as we bring in today's leaders and pioneers to discuss their experiences, share their wisdom, and help you grow as a leader. If you like this episode of Leaders Recon, please don't forget to subscribe below and leave us a 5-star review. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.